So today, our lesson is about nonfiction. Last week we talked about fiction. What is it? Today we're going to talk about the opposite, nonfiction. What is nonfiction? ¿Qué es nonficción? Nonfiction means not fake, or that is to say, true writing. Ficción, nonficción significa no falso, que es verdadero. An easy way to remember nonfiction, not fake. Nonfiction is true, it's not fake. Nonficción es no falso, es verdadero. Are there different types of nonfiction? Yeah, just like different kinds of fiction exist, there are different types of nonfiction too. Sí hay diferentes tipos de nonficción. A type of nonfiction is called a genre. There are different genres of nonfiction, just like there are different genres of fiction. A biography tells the story of someone's life. Biographies tell the story of people's lives. The person can be alive or dead because the author is someone else. Six Dots, a story of young Louis Braille. As a student, Louis Braille was frustrated by the lack of books for people with visual impairments and began his mission to develop an accessible reading system by modifying a military coding technique. So we see this is a story of young Louis Braille. It is the true story of his life when he was young.
Miss Gensinger, if you are available, would you please contact the office 2300?
Sorry about that interruption. But it's not written by him. It was written by Jen Bryant. So this is a biography. A biography is the story of someone's life, and it's written by someone who is not that person. Memoir, also called autobiography. A memoir is someone's writing about their own life. Memoirs, also called autobiographies, are people's writings about their own lives. So, turning pages. There is much to admire and enjoy in Sonia Sotomayor's memoir for young readers. Not only does it trace her life through her childhood and law career into becoming the first ever Latina Supreme Court Justice, but it also traces her love of reading and shows how books were important to her life. Books helped her cope with her father's death and her childhood diabetes. They also inspired her to reach for her dreams in a world full of possibilities. So there we have a description of this book. As a memoir, it says that it's my life story. There's no other author on this page. It just says Sonia Sotomayor, turning pages. So Sonia Sotomayor must be the person who wrote it, and I can tell it's her because it says my life story. So since she wrote the story, it's a memoir. She wrote her own story. A memoir is also called an autobiography because that means self-biography. You wrote a biography of yourself. Historical writing, or history, describes events that happened in the past. Historical writing is usually about more than one person, not just one. So, an indigenous people's history of the United States for young people is about going beyond the story of America as a country discovered by a few brave men in the quote-unquote New World. Indigenous human rights advocate Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz reveals the roles that settler colonialism and policies of American Indian genocide played in forming our national identity. So in this history, we learn about all kinds of people who are indigenous or native to the United States. This is a history of a whole group of people, not just one person's life. That's how I can tell it's historical writing and not a biography, because it's about things in the past about a group of people. So which is this? Let's test our knowledge here. Is this a biography, a memoir, or historical writing? It's called Lifting as We Climb, Black Women's Battle for the Ballot Box. In Lifting as We Climb, Yvette Dion unearths the histories of extraordinary black women and women's groups whose fight for freedom was not only tied to their gender, but also to their race, including women such as Mary Church Terrell, who founded the NAACP, and journalist Ida B. Wells, a leader in both the suffrage and anti-lynching movements. This much-needed historical correction tells the essential stories of women left out of our textbooks. Okay, that was a lot, but let's take a look at some key things here. We're looking at biography, memoir, or historical writing. Biography is about one person, and it's written by a different person. Memoir is about one person's life, and it's written by that person. And historical writing is about a group of people or events in the past. So which of those is this? pause and think about it. Okay. Let's find out if your answer was right. This is historical writing. It's the story of events in the past. The fight for voting rights, or the battle for the ballot box, as it calls it here. And it's about more than one person. It's not just a biography of one person. It's about people like Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, and others. So this is historical writing. Which is it? Biography, memoir, or historical writing? Brown Girl Dreaming. Jacqueline Woodson, one of today's finest writers, tells the moving story of her childhood in mesmerizing verse. Raised in South Carolina and New York, Woodson always felt halfway home in each place. In vivid poems, she shares what it was like to grow up as an African American in the 1960s and 1970s, living with the remnants of Jim Crow and her growing awareness of the civil rights movement. Okay, so is this a biography, story of one person's life? A memoir, story written by the person themselves about their life? Or is it historical writing about events in the past? If you haven't already, pause the video and think about it. Welcome back. Let's find out what we have here. It's a memoir or an autobiography, a story of one person's life, Jacqueline Woodson, written by the person themselves. It was written by Jacqueline Woodson. There's no other author here. She wrote the story, and it's about her childhood. Last one, Duke Ellington. Biography, memoir, or historical writing? His name was Duke Ellington. As a child, he said piano made an umpty-dump sound that was headed nowhere worth following. But years later, he heard the piano played a whole new way. People called the music ragtime, and soon the sound had Duke's fingers writing the piano keys. So what is this? Pause and think. All right, you might have done process of elimination here. The only thing left is biography. This is a story of one person's life, Duke Ellington. And it was written by someone else, Andrea Davis Pinckney. It wasn't written by Duke. If it was written by Duke, what would it be? Pause the video and think. Okay. Did you think that it was memoir or historical writing? If you said memoir, you were correct. A memoir is a piece of writing about one person's life that's written by that person.